Now, the Medicaid cuts and the tax cuts for the rich are getting the most headlines out of this big, beautiful bill, which passed the House, and we'll see what happens in the Senate. But the American Prospect did a good write up here, pointing out 10 items that are embedded within this bill that are equally, if not more horrifying, that are not getting that much ink spilled over them. So 10 sneaky sleeper provisions in Trump's big, beautiful bill. I want to credit the author here since this was well done here. Robert Kuttner wrote this piece. So let's take a look. In the headlines, the headlines in the budget reconciliation bill that passed the House by one vote early Thursday morning are well known. Massive tax cuts for the rich, financed by crippling program cuts in Medicaid and food stamps, raising the federal debt by 3.3 trillion over a decade, and in turn, spooking bond markets. But a lot of other mischief is buried in the fine print. Here are 10 of the worst. Crippling the courts. Okay, so this is a pretty scary one. The bill, hiding behind the premise that it is an appropriations measure, prohibits any funds from being used to carry out court orders holding executive branch officials in contempt. This is designed to enable Trump and his officials to continue defying court orders. It is almost certainly unconstitutional if courts have the nerve to say so. So I decided to elaborate a bit on this one since it's a bit complicated. Okay, so this is a blog post from Just Security called A Terrible Idea by Erwin Chemerinsky. The provision in the proposed budget reconciliation bill states no court of the United States may use appropriated funds to enforce a contempt citation for failure to comply with an injunction or temporary restraining order if no security was given when the injunction or order was issued pursuant to Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 65C, whether issued prior to, on, or subsequent to the date of enactment of this section. By its very terms, this provision is meant to limit the power of federal courts to use their contempt power. In other words, if you tell Donald Trump that he must make an attempt to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia home, and he tells you to go get your fucking shine box, this limits, if not undoes, the court's capacity to hold him in contempt. It does so by relying on a relatively rarely used provision of the rules that govern civil cases in federal court. Rule 65C says judges may issue a preliminary injunction or a temporary restraining order only if the movement gives security in an amount that the court considers proper to pay the costs and damages sustained by any party found to have been wrongfully enjoined or restrained. So in other words, you got to put up some money so in case you do the defendant wrong, they get compensated for that. Because federal courts rarely have required plaintiffs to post bonds, it would mean that hundreds and hundreds of court orders in cases ranging from antitrust to protection of private tax information to safeguarding the Social Security Administration to school desegregation to police reform would be rendered unenforceable. Even when the government had been found to violate the Constitution, nothing could be done to enforce the injunctions against it. In fact, the greatest effect of adopting the provision would be to make countless existing judicial orders unenforceable. If enacted, judges will be able to set the bond at $1 so it can be easily met, but all existing judicial orders where no bond was required would become unenforceable. So this is very consistent with the Curtis Yarvin playbook. Just outrun the system. Right. Figure out ways to trip them up. So now all of these existing orders would be unenforceable, which means they have to start all over again. And now the administration is 4.5 months out in front of them. Maybe 5 months by the time they pass this. Who knows if they're going to pass this? There's a lot of dissent in the Senate. But that is pretty scary stuff. Bonus for the tax prep industry. The Biden administration sponsored a direct file measure to allow taxpayers to save money by using a free IRS tool to file their tax return rather than paying commercial tax preparers. The program is now available to taxpayers in 25 states. The reconciliation bill repeals the program. Just fuck you to middle-class people.
There is absolutely no good government rationale to doing that whatsoever.
Why would you make it harder for people and more expensive for people to file their taxes unless you just hated them, right? How's this? More savaging of migrants. Now, this is a horrible one. The bill adds $45 billion, with a B, $45 billion to build immigration jails, more than 13 times ICE's current detention budget. The bill would allow indefinite detention of immigrant children. It also adds several fees intended to harass. The measure charges families $3,500 to reunite with a child who arrived alone at the border. And a person seeking asylum will have to pay an application fee of at least $1,000. This is the Family Values Party. $3,500 to reunite with a child who arrived alone at the border, and a $1,000 application fee for people seeking asylum. Now, keep in mind, the people seeking asylum make an unbelievably dangerous trek, sometimes over 1,000 miles on foot, on train cars, through very, very dangerous terrain, alongside some very dangerous people. They're going to have $1,000 on them when they get to the border to say, hey, here's $1,000 with my asylum
they'll have their
application.
throat cut for that money before
Of course, they'll never make it with that money on them. It's just insanity. That's, once again, just absolute cruelty. Terminating the tax status of nonprofits. The reconciliation text gives the administration the power to define nonprofits as terrorist-supporting organizations and expedite the ending of their tax status. This is ostensibly directed against pro-Palestinian groups, but could be used to suppress the free speech and activism of climate organizations and others. Here's another one. Who do you think? See, this is why J.D. Vance is there. Blocking state regulation of AI. The bill prohibits any state or subdivision from passing any law or regulation regulating artificial intelligence models, artificial intelligence systems, or automated decision systems, during the 10-year period beginning on the date of the enactment of this act. Wow. So no AI regulation for 10 years. It requires the repeal of any such laws already on the books. According to the lever, the language could be stretched to block efforts by local governments to regulate private equity firms and other landlords using AI software to jack up rents. We've covered that in its own segment about a year ago. Gutting the estate tax. Oh, well, look at that. As if the current exemptions were not enough, the bill raises the no tax floor to a staggering $15 million for single people and $30 million for couples in 2026. So a couple could leave $29.99 million to their heirs tax-free. As recently as 2001, 2.1% of estates paid some tax. With this change, the percentage falls to less than 0.08%. So a special tax cut for 30 millionaires, for people worth $30 million. Weakening the child tax credit. The bill nominally increases the current child tax credit from $2,000 to $2,500 per child, but it also lowers the eligibility income threshold, making millions of children ineligible. The bill also excludes from the credit 4.5 million children who have a parent without a Social Security number, but who pays taxes with a tax identification number. These children are predominantly U.S. citizens with an immigrant parent. Expanding school vouchers. The bill gives $20 billion in the form of tax credits to donors who give money to voucher schools. So, in other words, rich people who donate money to private schools for rich people get a tax break. We don't have to read all of that text. Stealth cuts in the Affordable Care Act. The bill allows tax credits that subsidize ACA premiums to expire at the end of 2025. The result will be that out-of-pocket costs for insurance under the ACA will become more expensive and millions of people will lose coverage. And finally, this one is just funny. I didn't know that the Bonanno crime family had lobbyists in D.C., but apparently they do. Support for gun silencers. Buried deep in the bill is a provision that repeals the $200 excise tax on the sale of gun silencers, which have no lawful purpose other than concealing shootings. So they had to scrap that $200 tax on gun silencers. So, yeah. The big, beautiful
when you
bill.
need to blow your neighbor's head off without anyone hearing it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what the fuck? Like, you got to repeal a tax on gun silencers? Like, what could be the possible motivation for that other than to enable criminal activity?
It's cartoonishly evil.
Yeah.
There's just the idea, Trump is doing this for you. He's not in this for himself. It's so absurd. It's so absurd. It's the levels of comic corruption and absolute hostility to the public good
Yeah,
on
yeah,
all
exactly. Yeah,
levels. I mean, it keeps reminding me of Caligula because, Tiberius hated the Roman people, and he took Caligula by the contemporaneous accounts to Capri, and basically turned him into a monster by exposing him to his own debauchery and hedonism. And Tiberius supposedly said, I am suckling a viper in the heart of Rome. And his whole plan was that Caligula would do what he did.
right.
That's what this is reminding me of. The idea of a leader whose intention is to do everything possible to hurt the people they rule. This is some Roman kind of shit.
Oh yeah, yeah. It is. You're right. It's cartoonishly evil, and good job by Robert Kuttner to find those things and dig them out because he's right. These things have really not gotten any press because people have been understandably preoccupied with the Medicaid cuts since that's a huge emergency, obviously. Uh, but these are terrifying as well. I mean, the disempowering of the courts is
Yeah,
terrifying.
yeah.
The migrant stuff is just sadistic and evil. An application fee of $1,000 to seek asylum status. The AI stuff is very chilling. We already know that the PayPal mafia has a lot of influence with this crowd, and of course, something that blocks AI regulation for a decade. I mean, a decade is a century in the world of computer technology advancements, right? So, I mean, you're basically just giving a blank check to these tech companies to do God knows what they have in store for us. So yeah, this is completely dystopian. and a couple of provisions in here just to make life even easier for but like so you're doubling the floor for the estate tax exemption from 15 million to 30 million. So in other words, the person who's making 20 million or the person with the estate worth 20 million, they're really getting squeezed by having to pay tax on what they pass down to their kids. You got to increase
It's the
that
it
to
it's
30.
it's the principle. It's
Yeah.
the principle. It is
Yeah.
very much like aristocrats who are offended at the very idea of the peasants imposing rules on them or imposing limitations on their power. Why else would you care?
Right.
Why else would you care? What on earth could these people want that they can't buy when you
Right.
have that level of wealth? It's the principle of the thing. The tax cuts for the rich. It's the principle of the thing. They hate you. They hate you. They hate people who are not rich. They see you as useless eaters,
Yep.
and they're going to do everything possible to make your life hell. And it's this very Gilded Age Carnegie thing that Carnegie wrote a whole treatise about philanthropy, arguing it. It's people don't realize how dark his philosophy was because his name is on so many things. He made so many donations, but his view was America should run as this kind of Darwinian jungle, and quality men like him would naturally rise to the top of that knife fight.
Right.
And then, having proven their quality, philanthropy should be up to them because they'll best know what the people need.
Yeah, when it comes to like the contempt that rich people have for people who are poorer than them, I don't know if you ever realized this, but I always realized this when I was a tour guide. The rich clients were the hardest to make laugh. They would very rarely laugh at my jokes. The rich ones. The working class ones, the middle class ones would laugh. My jokes when I would take the RVers in from the campground, because these are, scraggly nomads, they were great crowds. They would laugh. They were so fun. The rich clients was very hard to get a laugh out of them. And that's
Well,
what that's about.
also, very often the rich clients were insane,
Oh yeah,
like
well that
like
too.
clearly crazy in a way
Yeah.
that you could only be if you don't have to answer to anybody.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, they were insane. I had this couple once. It was unbelievable. They were staying at a luxury hotel out in Williamsburg. They lived on the Upper East Side. They were having like a staycation. And so something happened with their reservation at one of the luxury hotels in Williamsburg. So the booker was like, "Yeah, they're probably going to have to cancel." I'm like, "All right, whatever." So I get a call a couple hours. Hold on, they found another luxury hotel in the area that they're going to come to. So can you take them out? I said, "Sure." It was a couple with two kids, and they were a complete nightmare. And well, I love kids, but they would go. They would pass the Apple store Like, yeah, we want to go in the Apple Store and look around here. So the mother and father go looking at iPads. The kids are fucking running in 10 different directions. They just expect I'm
Mhm.
supposed to wrangle them. Like, it's not my job
You're
to
a
wrangle your
servant, yeah.
kids. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, they're brutal.
Yeah, you see a lot
Brutal.
of that too, like very dysfunctional family
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
dynamics. I had one family, I never forgot them, where like it was clear that the father and the two kids walked on eggshells around this just capricious, unpredictable mother
Mm-hmm.
who would
Yeah.
just, and I'd be in the middle of monologuing. She would just turn around and just walk away from me.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like
No, it's crazy.
yeah, no. The only time I ever had rich people who were not fucked up one way or another was when they were self-made, which is
Right.
rarer and rarer in this country. Once in a while, I'd get somebody who made it in construction or something,
Mm-hmm.
who was rich like that. Those
Right.
people were more normal. But yeah, the manor born people. I had one. I had these crazy fucking Republicans from Texas, and they wanted to tour the 9/11 museum of all things. And she goes, "You know what I like about George Bush? He kept us safe."
Yeah,
I
yeah.
said, and this was, normally you don't want to cross that line. I couldn't resist. I said, "Well, except for 9/11."
Except for the one day. Except for this one day. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, how do you say that? You're in the
Yeah.
fucking museum.
You're
Jesus.
standing in a hole in the ground. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, thanks for watching our video. We're currently raising money to produce our documentary film on the Uhuru movement. Go to givesendgo.com/do dissidents to chip in.
Every dollar you give goes towards the project. We do not take any kind of salary on these. We mostly live on Gatorade when we're on the road, so even solid food is iffy, just enough to get by. But we do not take any pay for this. Every dollar actually goes into what we need to shoot the project. The Uhuru movement is a subject that really deserves more exposure. Everybody heard about it through the court case, and that was an important thing to elevate. But they've done incredible community work demonstrating a different way that is socialist and not dependent on the government at the same time, which a lot of people don't even realize that still exists in the tradition of the Black Panther food and education programs. And to show there is such a strong community like that with such strong leadership is really important, particularly at this historical moment.
Yeah, so we're really excited about doing the project, but we need your help. So go to givesendgo.com/do dissidents to chip in. Thanks very much for your support.
Please clap.